Hello everyone, it's Tuesday and you're watching Within the Frame. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. South Korea's second largest city, Busan, is bidding to host the World Expo 2030. The port city features plenty of charm that is worthy of winning the bid for the global event. From marvelous scenery and cool beaches to the mesmerizing cultural aspects like movies and food. For those who have not yet had a chance to visit Busan, we bring our viewers a sneak peek of the city's appeal and discuss why it's in the running to host the World Expo 2030. For this, we welcome Chris Tharp, contributing writer for National Geographic Traveller. Chris, welcome and thank you for your time.
Great to be here. Thank you.
And we also have Andrew Lim, research and innovation attache at the Government of Quebec in Seoul. Andrew, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, first question to our Chris. Now, National Geographic Traveller has picked Busan as one of the 25 breathtaking places and experiences for 2023, specifically as one of 5 locations in the culture category as a place to immerse oneself in history and heritage. Could you explain to us what aspects of Busan made the magazine to include it on the list?
Well, I think the combination of history, heritage, and really thriving local culture helped to put it on the map and was part of the decision process. Now, I wasn't part of this particular story. I do a lot of work for National Geographic in Korea, but this story was done. I wasn't on board. I wasn't privy to the decision, but I can only guess. Just look around. Busan has temples galore. We have Bamosa, which is on the flank of Gyeongsangbuk Mountain underneath the, blanket of pines. There's Samgwangsa, which, is lit up by tens of thousands of lanterns on Buddha's birthday. And then, of course, Haedong Yeonggungsa, which is the temple on the sea, which is perched on these rocks overlooking the surging waves. And just that alone really gives this place a lot of historical flavor. And then there are actually historical sites such as the neighborhood of Donghae, which was once a city-state unto itself, which was the site of one of the biggest battles. In fact, the first major battle of the Imjin War when the Japanese invaded in the late 1500s. And then, you have Gyeongsangbuk Fortress on the mountain, which is this ancient fortress. And then there's modern culture, like, in the markets in Chagalchi and Gupyeong Gangtong Market, Gupo Market, Bujang Markets. These are sites where, modern Korea meets the raw older Korea with a kaleidoscope of colors and sights and sounds that really bring Korea to life. And I think that is absolute culture. And then we have the uber modern culture in the form of skyscrapers and gleaming high-rises and the festivals such as the Busan International Film Festival. All of this, when you kind of, as a complete picture, when you take it as the full package, it really makes Busan an attractive place culturally wise, I think.
Right, just by hearing it, I wanted to just be there. Now, Andrew, no wonder why National Geographic Traveller staff were mesmerized by Busan. Let's get into each specific unique aspect of the second largest city in South Korea. First of all, it is a city of movies. Busan has been hosting the Busan International Film Festival for nearly 3 decades, and last year it drew 3.4 million people. And not just that, it is also a city where you can try out a variety of food, including, of course, fresh fisheries. Could you tell us more about these, Andrew?
Yes, so Busan is very famous for their food. The speaker mentioned that. There's a lot of great things to be had. He also mentioned Chagalchi Market. That is one, or if not the biggest Korean seafood market. Of course, Seoul has the Norangjin fish market as well, but Chagalchi is arguably bigger. And what's also interesting is you mentioned movies. Busan is very famous for their Busan International Film Festival, but also they're very famous for Busan being an actual place to film movies. So this I'm sure many of you guys know there was a Marvel movie that was actually filmed here, namely Black Panther, several years back. And also there's the Kwanli Bridge that they actually filmed it. And it's a big deal because Marvel doesn't just go anywhere, but they go to places that have this kind of great ecosystem. Of course, other types of food they have, there's also something called pork and rice soup. Or in Korean, we call it daejigukbap. Of course, Korea is very well known for their soup kind of based food, and daejigukbap is based on pork. And this is actually very famous in Busan. Of course, they get it everywhere in Korea as well. But Busan's it has its origin.
Right, I see. Now, Chris, I have noticed that you have written the article on 5 reasons to work remotely in Busan, saying the city has become a draw for the digital nomad set. You have cited its most efficient transportation networks and cafes with complimentary lightning speed Wi-Fi. Could you give us more details?
Well, yes, I think Busan potentially can be a very attractive place for digital nomads or people who want to work remotely. Now, of course, Korea still has some work to do, mainly in the visa sector, because it's still not hard to be able to get a visa to work remotely. But I think when that happens, Busan is going to be really attractive because, I mean, let's look, there's just cafes everywhere here. It's an explosive cafe culture. When I came here in 2004, there were 1 or 2 big cafes and nothing, just instant coffee. And now there are massive dialed-in cafes with Wi-Fi and lovely, atmosphere where you can just sit down, hunker down, and work all day, and no one's going to say a thing. Of course, the internet infrastructure and also the transportation infrastructure is massive because there are subways, there are buses, there are cheap taxis. You can get anywhere in town for very cheap and very quickly, most all times of the day. Also, nice thing about Busan is the cost of living is still relatively cheap, especially compared to Seoul. You can pay rent here that's not going to break the bank. And it's also surrounded by lovely nature where when you're kind of stressed out or you've done too much work, you need a reset or a break, you can walk out and, take some fresh air at the beach or take a hike for a mountain on a walk, take a hike on a mountain for an hour and sort of just get your brain refreshed so you can sit down and do some more work. So I think the potential is here for a really good digital nomad community.
Right, we are going to tap on the nature splendor later on, but Andrew, before that, having a state-of-the-art subway system that runs often and on time and a reliable Wi-Fi network, if the World Expo 2030 is held in Busan, what beneficial could these conveniences be to visitors?
I mean, convenience is extremely important, but what I wanted to highlight is if you think about the expo, it'll be held in 2030. So we're talking about 7 years from now. And I mean, that in itself brings a lot of uncertainty. Yes, Korea has great infrastructure. Busan, but what I really, really value about Busan and Korea in general is its stability. I mean, we saw coronavirus and all that stuff. There was a lot of crazy things that's happening. Some of the other places and cities, I'm not saying they're bad necessarily, but perhaps in this kind of context, Korea has the infrastructure, they have the internet, they have all that, the coolness factor, all the infrastructure. But I think stability is what really brings Korea to the table compared to some of the other cities. Of course, there's other things such as safety. I'm sure like leaving like your laptop on the cafe desk. That often can be a no-no in certain countries, certain cities. But in Korea, for the people who came, also Busan included, these things are what makes Korea a really, really good place for people to come, not have a bad experience. They will have good times here with, of course, the infrastructure and all that stuff too. But 7 years is a long time. I think stability is what really brings Busan to the table.
Right, I see. So stability and safety could be a huge advantage for the country to win the bid. Now, Chris, the city is not just home to a wide variety of cultural experiences and convenient infrastructure. It is also a venue, like you said before, that offers nature splendor as well, especially with stunning beaches such as Haeundae and Gwanli. Isn't that right?
Yeah, when I came here in 2004, I was frankly astounded by the nature here. I was expecting this massive metropolis in East Asia with no sort of green spaces. That was kind of the perception that I mistakenly had back home. And I come from Seattle, which is one of the most green and eco-friendly cities in the country with a lot of parks and a lot of trees and water. But in Busan, they have it all. We have everything here. Of course, the beaches you mentioned, along with Songjong, Songdo, and Darepo. There are also really cool marine parks here, which don't get mentioned a lot. Places like Igidae and Taejongdae and Amnang Park, which is connected to Songdo Beach by a new cable car. Well, there it is right there. And of course, the mountains here are incredible. There's Gumjingsan, Jangsan, Baekhyangsan, as well as the Yeongnam Alps, which are within striking distance here, just, 30 or 40 minutes by public transportation or private. And there's just all sorts of forest and green spaces here, along with the Nakdong River Delta, including Ulsukdo Park, which is an island that is home to migratory birds, one of the best migratory bird watching places in the country, especially in the winter. So this city of 3.5 million has a lot to offer nature-wise. It's actually very surprising.
Right, I see. Seeing those beaches in the footage, I just want to swim there right now. Now, Andrew, other strong contenders that are bidding to hold the World Expo 2030 are Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, Italy's Rome, and Ukraine's Odessa. Given that the expo is held during the hottest part of the year, from May to October, as far as I know, I believe having cool beaches around the expo spot could be a huge advantage for visitors. What is your takeaway on this?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, most Korean people know there's kind of a ritual around that time. A lot of the people from the northern side of Korea, like Seoul and other places, because Seoul, obviously, it's they don't really have beaches. And yes, Incheon has kind of a beach, but it's not really of the same quality. So there is a ritual where a lot of Seoulites and other people from the northern part, they come to Busan in Gwanganli, but also Haeundae Beach. It's extremely famous, and they do their kind of thing there. A lot of the younger people generation, they go there. So the beaches are extremely well developed, as you could see from the picture here. But what I also think that makes Busan cool is, yes, it has the beaches, it has quite a lot of nature, contrary to belief, but also what Busan's bringing to the table besides safety, it's kind of the technology, which we might talk about a bit later as well. Busan is trying to kind of test out a lot of the technology so that it'll be ready by 2030. They're trying to do things like metaverse. I know it's a big fad. Facebook changed the name to Meta. They're trying to have it so that although maybe in 2030 you just might not know what might be in store in the world. So maybe people who cannot come for whatever reason, politically, whatnot, they'll have the metaverse. People will be able to actually enjoy the expo through online. I think these kind of new technologies is what really makes the expo really a big thing. I mean, you're able to kind of not only promote your, all the forest and culture and all that too, but all this new tech and innovation that would kind of, propel Korea, but also the world into the future.
Right, I cannot agree more. Now, Chris, we cannot leave out K-pop, can we? Now, growing worldwide recognition of Korean cultural products with K-pop at the center, of course, could also be one of the strategies South Korea could use to their advantage to win the bid. Now, are there any K-pop related venues or events that visitors can take a look at in Busan City?
Well, let's be honest here and just state that Busan will never compete with Seoul when it comes to K-pop. K-pop is so closely associated to Seoul in some certain neighborhoods there that Busan will always be playing catch up. But that said, two members of BTS are from here. Jimin and Jungkook are from here. So you can go to the Gamcheon Cultural Village, which is a great sort of old village on the hill of previous war refugees with murals. And one of the murals is a very famous photo op of both of Busan's famous sons, Jimin and Jungkook. So you can take pictures there. There are some festivals here. There's the Busan Sea Festival, which has a lot of K-pop. It's not purely a K-pop festival. That takes place in August at Haeundae Beach and around the city. And so that's a big K-pop thing. There's also the One Asia Festival. I'm not sure of its future. They tried to bring it back in 2022, and sadly it was canceled after the tragedy in Itaewon. But I think there are plans to bring it back, and that's like a K-pop stand's dream. There are, bands and groups and singers and merchandise and meet and greets. But also, I think the future of Busan is very bright for K-pop because there are just so many great places to shoot here. So I think we'll be seeing a lot more videos and even dramas and other things associated with Hallyu, or the Korean wave, happening here in Busan. It makes sense. So obviously, that should be a tactic to draw visitors and also to, draw eyes for a bid such as they're doing for the expo right now.
Right, I see. Now, Andrew, Busan also has a range of green initiatives as well. The North Port, a proposed site for the expo, is reportedly where a prototype floating community will be built by 2028. Now, could you explain what this is and how this is related to a green initiative?
Yeah, so you bring up a good point. It is one of the flagship programs that Busan is kind of spearheading because Busan, contrary to belief, yes, they have beaches, they have these kind of areas for tourists and to cultural events, but port, Busan Port is geared a bit more towards the industry. Busan Port has one of the highest container ship trade in the world, or I would say top 10. So what they wanted to do is, yes, beaches are nice, but they wanted to have like kind of a very, very centralized kind of a place where people could do a lot of these cultural things. So some of the key aspects they're trying to build is, for example, there's something called the Busan Opera House. I'm sure you've probably heard of this. They're kind of benchmarking some other countries. I don't need to name this, but I'm sure you guys know there's a lot of places that have opera houses. They're trying to also have some new office spaces so that, because they know if you have just touristic sites, that's good too. But you also need some people to work there, startup innovation, which kind of will bring the ecosystem together. New exhibition center there, because yes, Busan already has some exhibition there. Specs, it's a bit more culturally based in this kind of exhibition. So for the industrial ships, obviously we still need those. So we will have it in the Taeje port. It's about 15 kilometers away. So we will still not get rid of the industrial ships because that's very important. But then they'll also make it so it's kind of a cultural mecca that's not just in Seoul but also in Busan. And they will incorporate a lot of new technology, as I mentioned before, like things like UAM or urban air mobility vehicles, because they will kind of future-proof. They'll know that we'll have probably the Expo at 2030, so we'll put all this new tech behind us so that when they do launch this, they could kind of propel Korea into the future. So I think this is very big. One more thing is they're bringing like AI-based avatars, so they could actually, as I mentioned, have avatars within the Expo, look around, meet people there as well. They'll also have something called a net zero marine garden, which is pretty cool. I'm sure you guys know what marine garden is, kind of with fishes and all that stuff, but they want to try to make it net zero by, absorbing carbon, having a kind of sustained ecosystem itself. So they're putting a lot of cool stuff in there. And one last thing, they're also trying to introduce something called K-Culture World Cruise Tour. So as I mentioned, Busan is a tour port city, so they are able to have cruises. So they want to incorporate all these things together to kind of make it, very innovative, very green, and very cultural.
Right, I see. Interesting. Now, Chris, if Busan does get to hold the World Expo 2030, how could this mega event help the port city take a step forward as a must-visit tourist city?
Well, it would be obviously transformational. It would be huge for this city. And it's interesting because when I came here in 2004, Busan, it was still like under early transition, but it was still very much a rough and tumble kind of port town. It was a little old school and was a little, unpolished around the edges, which I like about Busan. But the transformation that has happened over the last 18 years that I've spent here has been extraordinary. It's been really special to witness it on the ground. And so I think now is Busan's time, and as much as part of me doesn't want to let the secret out. I live here and I enjoy it here, and I'm not sure if I want the rest of the world to know about it because I want it for myself. And some of us locals often like that, but I think it's time for Busan to finally emerge out of, the capital's overwhelming shadow and enjoy its time in the sun. And a successful bid for the 2030 Expo will do this in spades. So it's time. So I think Busan deserves this, and it will make a big difference. It will shine a light on the city that's never been shown before, but the city has done the work to bring this to light. So now's the time.
Right, as people say, Busan is ready. Now, Andrew, the BIE will hold a vote during its General Assembly in November to select the host city for the 2030 international event. Until the final result comes out, what aspects of Busan City do you believe the South Korean government will have to focus on and promote?
I actually think Korea is doing a very good job in promoting Busan Expo. I think everybody knows Korea has this branding image. I know it's just, we're talking about Busan here, but Korea, Busan is in Korea. It's K everything. I'm sure you've heard K quarantine, K-pop, K-drama, K-food, K-movies, K everything. And what I found very special about Busan Expo and how Korea is kind of promoting this is everyone's doing it. Yes, Busan City should do it because it's held there. And yes, it's a big event, but the central government, the ministries, BTS, K-pop, even Seoul City government is on behalf of Busan kind of city and Korea. Everyone's promoting this, and I think this is really bringing many of the ministries, the people together to show Korea is a great place to hold these kind of events, especially Busan, because as we mentioned before, yes, everything is kind of centered around Seoul. And yes, ministries and governments have been trying to kind of diversify away from Seoul by, I don't know, for example, creating administrative capital such as Sejong City. But obviously, such artificial ways do not work. But this kind of natural way to bring talent, bring innovation, bring culture and tourism to a city, I think this is how one of the ways could be done to really revitalize and really put Busan at the center stage. And one of my experience, I've been living here for 12 years, is I've also seen a lot of changes in Korea. And I think Korea is kind of in the center stage now. I mean, I work for the Quebec government or as part of the Team Canada, and we do a lot of course, foreign affairs work. And I see more and more, there's a lot of demand to come to Korea to work, for example, with batteries or with K-pop, with movies, just like automated vehicles, AI, just everything. So I think, yes, 2030 is kind of far ahead, but as we build up to this, Korea will do more and more things with conglomerates, whatnot. I think 2030 will really like kind of show we are ready and we are kind of coming out even more.
Right. I mean, I myself will have my fingers crossed for Busan to win the bid to become a host city. I'd like to ask more questions to our experts, but unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today's edition. But thank you, Chris, and thank you, Andrew, for letting us get to know Port City's own charms. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is all for Within the Frame tonight. We will be back tomorrow with more in-depth stories. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.